But it was a red card. There was an incident. It was kind of, they were confused whether or not they can go back enough plays to check it again, which is why it wasn't given.
Yeah.
But like, look, we're kind of sick and tired of this. Like, I mean, the fact that he went on then a couple of minutes later and scored the winning drop goal, so it was even worse for Gloucester. So he should have been on the pitch in the first place.
Joe presents House of Rugby, together with Bank of Ireland, proud supporter of the 4 Irish provinces.
Hello and welcome back to House of Rugby together with Bank of Ireland. I'm Greg O'Shea, and as always the lovely Lindsay Pete is here beside me. How are you doing, Lindsay?
I'm good, how are you?
I'm fabulous, yeah. Good weekend now. I was on the late on Friday.
Do you know what? We were so proud of you.
Oh, thank you so much.
We texted you, obviously, we very, very proud moment, very brave man, and you were just your gorgeous natural self. So a lot of people, I'd say you really hit home. So yeah, we're very proud. Well done to you.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah, you all text me. I appreciate it. Even Pat, the producer, did. Yeah, it was very exposing. But look, as long as it helps some young fellas, it's all that matters. And I've been inundated with young guys and even older lads coming up to me on the street and stuff. So hopefully it was a catalyst to get lads talking. And we have another lad sitting beside you here, Jason, who reached out to me as well. How was your weekend?
Good. Yeah, but no, just before we move on from that, like, I mean, I have to say, Greg, it's something that isn't spoken about enough, and you know that yourself, and it's why you came out and said it. Like, and I know lots of my friends, and I've had problems myself. I think a lot of young guys will say they've had problems, and it's just like, it's such a taboo subject. And it's finally that's starting to get out, and something like the Late Late Show, to see the older people don't get a chance to see what's going on in young guys' lives, young men and women. Like, so it's good and fair play.
Yeah, exactly. I think we can take a page out of the female book. You're much better speaking to each other, it seems to be. Whereas like men, we're just trying to be the stoic guys, and especially coming from rugby backgrounds, but it might be the same in female dressing rooms.
Well, you chuck the words out of mouths. I think we talk about the game that we adore, which is rugby, and I think, having come from different sports and you come into it, it's certainly like you have to be this man's man, really buff and really, like you're like stone, and yeah, I have two great guys that sit to my right and left who are not that you're like emotional, but you're just able to express whatever you're feeling, and that needs to come in. And I've obviously a young son that we're trying to change that taboo, because I have a dad who's a great guy, but he's old school and he doesn't talk about a lot of things, but he's not emotional, but his behaviours would say something different. So do you know what? Listen, I'm sure it's embarrassing for you. We just think we're just very proud of you, and even yourself there, Jason, just to acknowledge us. So listen, fair play, and it's someone to, as a conversation starter, and just eliminate the taboos and the stigma that surrounds just being what we envisage as a man's man. And,
exactly,
it doesn't take away from your masculinity to having a little chat or a little cry or anything else.
Damn straight.
And I'm not too emotional either. I've been in therapy now for about 18 months, and it's nice to be able to chat, and it's different, and it's maybe not for everyone, and everyone has to find their way, but listen, it's about opening the conversations.
That was beautifully put, Lindsay. Thanks very much. And let's get into the episode. This is episode 13 of the season. So we're well stuck into it, aren't we?
Yeah, thank God it's Monday, huh?
Thank
God it's Monday.
We had some lovely URC on the weekend we're going to get stuck into, but there's also a chat from Jake Heenan. Our very own producer Pat was chatting to him as part of the season with series at Rugby Joe. So that's coming a little bit later. But we actually want to talk about some tackle tech that was going on in the weekend, guys. We have a few bold boys. Owen Farrell, Manu, Tuilagi, Aaron Cruden and Damien Dialande were all messing around the weekend.
Yeah.
What do you think, Jason?
Yeah, I mean, the big one, obviously, we have to start off with the Owen Farrell one, because we know, T-Rex, as he's familiar known as them. But another incident there, and I think what made it kind of even bigger is the fact that it was Saracens versus Gloucester. The tackle, it was on Jack Clement. It was a pick and go off a ruck. No arms, shoulder tucked behind. There was a bit of a miscommunication between the TMO, Claire Hodnett, and the referee on the day. Was my mind has gone blank, Pat. I can't remember the referee was. Doesn't matter, it's irrelevant. But it was a red card. There was an incident. It was kind of, they were confused whether or not they can go back enough plays to check it again, which is why it wasn't given. But look, we're kind of sick and tired of this. Like, I mean, the fact that he went on then a couple of minutes later and scored the winning drop goal, so it was even worse for Gloucester. So he should have been on the pitch in the first place. As I said, even O'Driscoll was talking about it on Sunday ahead of the Harlequins match, Harlequin Sale, which is another match which has another incident which we'll get on to later on. But he was like, we're seeing this time and time again with Farrell with his technique, and look, he's supposed to be getting we'll find out today now whether he gets cited or not. Like, I would imagine he will.
Yeah, he has been cited.
There you go, it's Justin.
Carl Dixon as well. Yeah.
Carl Dixon was a referee, apology, so he's just been cited. So,
and do we know what he got?
It's hearing tomorrow half six or something like that. Yeah.
Okay, well, we're presuming that they'll probably use him as an example for the Six Nations, and maybe he might miss the first week or second week. What do you think, Lindsay?
Well, I think they need to, like, I mean, it's Groundhog lads, isn't it? We're like constantly week on week, we're talking about the same things, the same issues. I think something big has to happen. So I think you don't want anyone to be the scapegoat, but someone has to be done. Like, so the likes of Owen Farrell, who is, I think O'Driscoll said it, you know, it's you want your leader and your 10 kind of making those big tackles, but you can actually see the angle of his shoulder going in. Yeah. And I've been there as a prop, as a forward on the 5 metre line, and it's very hard to tackle when someone in a pick and go. So you kind of target the ball, but you still have to wrap something, you know, not try and go for your man's head. So I think they're going to have to make an example of some big player, and I think unfortunately it's an opportunity that can't be missed. And actually Brian Driscoll explains it very well about the laws and, you know, the phase and the play and can the TMO go back.
Yep.
So if you get an opportunity, have a look at that, because actually I was fascinated by it as well. Every day is a school day. So that's where the miscommunication came in. But again, it can't come down to that. Like, grand, that was a missed opportunity, human error, fine. Now we need to look at the sighting and the hearing and make an example and try and eliminate this, so we're not talking about international level and we're going over the same thing. And, you know, we'll go on to the next 2 or 3 examples. So it's not just one we're talking about this weekend, it's 4, and some of them were serious head collisions that would have left players out of the game.
Yeah, the confusion with the Owen Farrell and Jack Clement issue, I think, was the ref went up to the TMO and said, can you check the last phase of play, where they're allowed to check the last passage. So I think she didn't go far back enough to see the incident with Farrell, so she actually just didn't even see it, didn't get picked up. But the siding commissioner obviously did, and he just got sided there in the last couple of minutes. So Owen Farrell might be getting a slap on the wrist and might miss a couple of the Six Nations games. But do you know what? As you're saying, Lindsay, we have to do something about this, because there was 3 others on the weekend, Manu, Tuilagi and Tommaso Allen, and you were telling me, Jason, I'd missed the game, but that Tommaso Allen actually got stretchered off the pitch.
I look, that one, like, it just drives me mad, because it's just, people are getting more and more confused with rugby and what's going on in the game and what's legal and what's not legal and what's allowed. And even like I had it up on Twitter, like, and the back and forth of people saying, oh, it's a rugby incident, or you get these stupid tweets, you've obviously never played rugby before, you know, he's nothing you could do there. Look, if you watch the incident, okay, so Tommaso Allen goes to gather a kick, he knocks it on, it goes forward. As he drops down to the ground, Manu Tuilagi comes in, but he comes down into Tommaso Allen comes onto his knees, and Manu Tuilagi comes in kind of at an angle with his shoulder pointed out and completely takes his head off, almost decapitates him, busts his eye open, he ends up getting stretchered off. He's got a history of concussion as well, so very, very worrying scenes. The match was stopped for about 5 minutes. Wayne Barnes straight away just goes, I see nothing there, I see no foul play. Brushed it all off, didn't even check it, just played on. And then the commentators then are saying, so you've got Ben Kay saying, but there's no rap. And then you've got Ugo Mania saying, it's just a rugby collision. And they just brushed it off. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, like, you're giving mixed messages and no one knows what's going on. And then people are saying, oh, there's nothing he could do there, he couldn't stop. But there is no rap, right? I know it happens in a very, like, it happens very quickly. The same thing happened Ben Earl there a few weeks back, where his red card ended up getting overturned because they said he had something like 0.8 of a second to react in that moment of time. But if you look at what happens, look, okay, I understand he does drop. There is an argument to say maybe Tuilagi couldn't stop, but there is an argument to say he shouldn't have went in the first place, or he shouldn't have tucked his shoulder. But either way, the outcome is you've got a guy who's taken a serious bang to the head, who's been stretchered off the pitch, and do you know what they gave in the end? The knock-on
against Tommaso Allen, who's just been stretchered off.
You know, so I mean, you just, I don't know what's going on.
I saw it, right? So you're telling me, right? So Tuilagi is like looking at Tommaso Allen taking that ball. Obviously, you know you can't tackle in the air. So if you're a smart player, you're thinking, right, I'll wait till he gathers the ball, come down and absolutely leather him on his landing, which is legal.
Yep.
But the fact that, you know, we're saying about no time, if you've no time and you're out of time, surely it would have been upright, it would have been a chest bump, something. You're telling me you've no time to readjust your body?
He had him lined up, so he had him lined up while he was in the air.
Absolutely.
So that means he's not taking like proper care of the player there. It's foul play at the end of the day.
There's no
whether it's accidental foul play, whether there was intention there or not, you should be looking at the outcome of what actually happened. And what happened was a full force shoulder into the chin. And a player getting stretchered off the pitch with a serious injury.
Like, he could have been really, really, like, I saw it, like, and like Tuilagi is like a centre of like nearly prop size proportion away. Tommaso Allen is a 9. Like, I mean, it's just, it's just an uneven contest at the best of times, let alone if, you know, someone's lined up. So I think that was probably for me the most horrific. Like, I was grimacing at it, you know, and like, I've been there with neck injuries, even to go to poach a ball and you just get this shoulder in the back. It's just not nice.
It's so dangerous. And you said Manu Tuilagi is the size of a vending machine, like, and he's hasn't wrapped and he's put his shoulder into Tommaso Allen's head. I'm very surprised that Wayne Barnes didn't even go and check it. It's like Wayne Barnes is trying to like prove his authority on the pitch or something. I'm not checking that.
Or was he protecting the player because of international?
I don't know.
Was that it?
It'd be interesting to see if Tuilagi gets sided or something. But
Well, he
probably
should
won't
be because like Tommaso Allen's probably like out for a while now, because you said he has concussion history.
Yeah.
And he went off stretchered. He's not okay this Monday morning, like,
Yeah.
so. And there's still no card, not even a yellow card.
But what annoyed me about that as well is, like, and I knew when it happened, like, BT didn't put that up or anything, right? And there was no clips of it. I actually recorded off the TV and put it up, and it had 300,000 views overnight and hundreds of comments from players and ex-pros and people kind of going, this is a huge discussion, like, why is this? And it's just
They're
like,
trying to hide
it didn't happen. No.
Because again, it's under the spotlight and no one wants the difficult conversations about it. Until it changes, lads, we have to keep chatting about it. Now, Tommaso Allen did put up on his Twitter, I think, you know, thanks for the messages, I am good. But we can't sugarcoat this.
No.
Exactly. It's as you said, it's Groundhog Day. It's happening every podcast. We're talking about someone getting decapitated. Like, it's just, oh my God, it's so bad. And another one that we have to talk about is Aaron Cruden, who's a 50 capper at least for the All Blacks, just made such a stupid clear out on Faf de Klerk, straight on top of his head.
Yeah.
And he did get a red card.
Yes.
Did you see that one, Jason?
Yeah, that was kind of similar situation to Farrell's one, but probably even a little bit worse, even, like, because he has more time. He's more time to line him up.
It's more calculated, like,
and it's just like, as you said, 50 caps. Aaron Cruden has been around the block. He's played Super Rugby with the Chiefs for years. He's played over in Montpellier here, like, very, very experienced 10.
Yeah.
I mean, come on, like, just.
An experienced 9 though with Faf de Klerk, I'd say he was a 9, and he was kind of just, you know, lauding there at the back of the ruck and 9 man. Listen, he was just poking Cruden, to be honest, and he reacted and they kind of smiled and shook hands.
Faf
after.
did make a meal of it, to be fair to him,
listen,
like,
but again, we can't kind of sugarcoat it. He played the game and he won.
He is. That's why he's so good, Faf de Klerk, getting guys riled up. I'd say he was maybe chirping or something. That's why he did it.
Oh, I was so. Everyone knows that was 9s, don't they? You're kind of at the back of the ruck going, I can't wait to get you.
And Damon De Lande had one on you, Sakamoto. He got a red card for a bad clear out on the back of the neck. I didn't actually catch that one, Lindsay.
I did, Sakamoto, if I said that right, he was kind of post over the ball and really rounded, and Damien De Lande just came in like shouldered, and again kind of a bit like the Bundy one. There was no space to make that clear out. The ball was won and he should have just left it, to be honest. I think it was just, do you know when you want Monday reviews and you're thinking, oh God, if I miss this clear out now, that's what I'd say was going through his head. Again, no, you know, not taken away from it. So it was kind of harsh. I don't think there was no intention. I think he was just trying it there, but it is what it is, and it was a red card.
Well, at least there is a couple of red cards in there, so hopefully they're going to get a couple more citations. Well, Manu Tuilagi will hopefully get cited as well for that, and it will kind of start teaching guys a lesson, and hopefully some of these guys will miss Six Nations games. We don't want that as spectators because it's going to lessen the level of the game, but it's going to probably make people look up and listen and be like, all right, we can't keep doing this, can't keep hitting guys from the nipples up, is what I would say, Lindsay.
Yeah, and Manu's only back after long-term injury. Like, we want to see the world-class players playing. Do you know what I mean? No one's here to try and make people scapegoats, but at the end of the day, referees in the hierarchy who have the decision. And listen, we've all been there. I'm an athlete who has, you know, someone commented to me on Saturday, oh yeah, you're giving out about Pia Mani fighting with a pillowcase and you do the same. That's why I can say it. So you're this athlete that sees missed at times, but, you know, there has to be, the laws are there to protect yourself and others. The same with the committees and the hierarchy and the referees. So we kind of all need to be singing off the same hymn sheet. You know?
Do we want Manu Tuilagi playing and you're sacrificing Tommaso Allen, who is an Italian international and very good player, who has a history of concussion, who might actually miss Six Nations though, because he might actually have to be stood down. Do you know? And you're like, oh, Manu gets to play the Six Nations, Tommaso Allen doesn't, because he got his head bloody taken off by him.
Exactly.
You know, so look at it that way as well. Like, I mean, are we going to sacrifice one player for another? No. I don't think so.
Yeah, well, we'll see how all that plays out now. I'm sure World Rugby are flat out this morning reassessing all those.
Oh God, yeah.
Well, hopefully, we hope they are. And the refs are getting phone calls as well, being like, why didn't you pick that up? But it's nothing really to do with us, but we're going to have our comments on it anyway. But moving on to the rugby on the weekend, the URC was on. Connacht had a great win, guys. They played well. They won 24-12 at home against the Sharks. Now, in fairness, the Sharks are missing Etzebeth, Khaleesi, who's after Racing, Mampipi was missing, and Lucanio Am was missing as well. So it was depleted Sharks team, and it was a freezing cold night over in Galway. It looked with sideways
always.
rain. So I can understand why the Shark guys probably weren't up to form. But did you watch it, Jason?
Yeah, it was a good game. It's a good game. I watched the second half and then went back and watched the first half then the next day because I was busy enough with Rugby Joe. But yeah, I mean, like some good tries. That second try that Mac Hansen's chipped through and then onto Farrell and the pass back inside to, what's his name again? The
Colin
10.
Ford.
Yeah, Ford, who's playing at 12, who's normally a 10.
Yeah.
It's back inside to him. And then the third try, again, another like just lovely hands loop around play out the back. They played some lovely rugby.
Some of their offloads were ridiculous, weren't they? Because actually Sharks defence was it was nice. It was just that like split second moment, and some of the offloads and their depth, they were good. I want to know though, was Mac Hansen, because usually obviously that play with the winger coming off the scrum, I was like, was he meant to carry there, or did he we kind of saw the 10 in him, didn't we? With
Do you
that
know what I
little
noticed
chip.
about Mac Hansen this morning, and I'm absolutely disgusted.
He cut his hair.
He cut his hair off. That's an I
And
never
the
really
noticed
moustache.
that?
Man, it's
No,
all gone.
it's gone.
What are you
Moustache,
doing, man? The
hair.
hair.
Looks like a normal lad now.
Yeah, like,
Mac, what are you doing,
Yeah,
man?
we need him to stay.
Right, cheers, Mac. I have to now dry the lad's eyes, not only with
Anyone
Munster,
ever
but your
grown
hair.
back with a Six Nations
That's
either?
ridiculous,
Too
right?
soon. What was he
It's
thinking?
like Samson cutting his hair off, Mac.
Well, maybe he might donate for the hair that was cut off by Mr. Murray.
Next year. Like, there's no way, man. He's gone down to as short as me.
In fairness, like what was the cancer? It was for a cancer society, wasn't it? For
no, for Laura Lynn. It was
for Laura Lynn, the single greatest mullet in the history of rugby.
Yeah.
Yes,
I've
Darren
never seen
Murray.
anything like it.
Fair
But
play, Darren
fair
Murray.
play to him.
Incredible mullet. Great way to cut it off as well.
As long as it's
Yeah.
such a good cause, like, you know.
Chopped it off after the game and raised money for Lauren Lynn, the cancer charity. So,
Yeah.
Darren, you are some man. Brilliant, great stuff. But as you mentioned there, Lindsay, the try scored by Connacht was such nice variance in it.
Yeah.
So we had the chip from Mac.
Yeah.
We also had the lovely break with Tiernan O'Halloran coming around, which was finished off by Jack Carty in the end, I think.
That was a loop around player on the back.
Loop around play.
Yeah, it was lovely.
Conor Oliver had a maul to start off the tries, and Colin Ford had 2 tries as well.
And they'd one
with a
disallowed.
Charge
Did you
down,
see
didn't
that?
he? Kyle Fords with the
He had a
second
charge down as well.
Yeah,
So
charge down.
great variety in the Connacht play, which seems that they're getting back in form.
Big time. Much needed win. The only thing I'd say is like they were miles ahead and then kind of just switched off probably in the last 20 minutes to like
Pulling appointments in the bag, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Being a bit harsh on them, but I'm only saying that because they're obviously going back into Champions Cup next week against Breve, and they kind of need just that consistency to build. So it was kind of like grand. Now they left we're talking about the changes for the South African team, but I mean Keane Pendergast was on the bench, so we had no Niall Murray either. Darren Murray obviously was there, so there was kind of
No Bundy.
So there was kind of some nice changes as well. Adam Byrne wasn't there either on the wing.
It's interesting to see Colin Ford playing at 12 when he'd usually be a 10. I think he's 10 by trade.
Yeah, he
isn't
is 10 by trade.
Played at 12, got 2 tries and man of the match, and he wouldn't even come into the conversation as a centre for Ireland. But he had a great game, didn't he, Jason?
Nah, he did. In fairness, I said, like, you know, Connacht, as we said time and time again, have got an excellent squad. They really do have a really good squad. They're just lacking in that consistency. You know, I mean, it was a much needed win. I think, you know, Connacht could push on. Maybe they can get that top 8 position. Hopefully not ahead of Munster.
Probability says Munster ahead.
Yeah, but it's good to see Connacht playing well. It's good to see him humming, especially coming to the Six Nations. Like, you want to see these Irish guys playing. Probably a couple of Connacht guys there you see might get a call up, you know.
I like Tom Farrell. I thought
Tom
he was
Farrell,
exceptional against Leinster as
Tough
well.
position to break into.
Oh, listen. It's kind of like the 10. Now we've like a list of centres.
Yeah.
We had none for ages, and now we've like this long list, you know. But no, do you know what? I'd like to see him in camp though.
Yeah, I was like, he generally likes it. He generally likes to bring in maybe 5 to 10 players that kind of train
John
around
Hodnett
camp.
as well. We'll go into that maybe.
John Hodness, we'll get into that. Likes of Kendall and stuff like that. I'd like to see
You're
those
saying
guys
you
coming in.
think Tom Farrell would be pulled into the Six Nations squad?
Maybe into train with the squad. Like, I mean,
No, I think to train. No, I don't think he'd play. But I think, you know, just a bit like Keane Prendergast, kind of get him in, blood him, just see what a bit like Leinster. Like, obviously Jimmy told us they have 3 teams, and it just means lads get reps and get in good position. Where if you're kind of really restricting your squad, you know yourself, you're just kind of in and out, just changing. Whereas at least with 3 teams, you get more reps in, more lads getting exposed. And I think
the thing with Tom Farrell, he's not a young fella. Like, he's been around donkeys.
Yeah.
He's 29. Like, he's been performing for ages. And you think he's what?
He was in the Ireland squad for a while. I remember hearing that he got injured. Like, he's been in a few training squads around, like, but he's a good player to keep.
He's
an eye
class.
on.
Yeah,
He's a very good player. Like, and he's very
just being consistent now at the minute, and I just think, he's just all of a sudden obviously with confidence and sure. Who's he keeping out at the minute? He used to play for Leinster. Oh God, his name is eluding me now at the minute. But I just think look, at the end of the day, if people are
You're
performing,
talking
they
of
should
Tom
be
Daly.
Tom Daly, yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, Tom Daly, another unbelievable player. So yeah, you're right, Jason. Connacht have a great squad, and they got a good game together there now. And they're up to 11th in the URC table. So good stuff, Connacht. You're pulling it together towards the middle part of the season. So we're proud of you.
Proud of you, boy.
We are proud of you. And something that was very interesting to watch in the weekend from the URC games, because it wasn't the most exciting weekend, but it was when Leinster were getting a bit shaky over
Hold on, I
Ospreys.
just probably this is the way you two boys were now. On Saturday night.
Yeah.
First loss of the season, and then we come up trumps 13 from 13. You're welcome.
First they were against Ospreys away, and Ospreys lost at home, so it was 24-19 to Leinster. But for the first 10-15 minutes, Ospreys were all over them.
Nearly lost to a Welsh team.
Yeah.
Hey, Joe, my
Welsh
first
team.
time I watched that game from start to finish. I'd say I have more wrinkles now, and I was like, this just like. Oh, I was how the telly didn't get lettered with the remote control was ridiculous. But this is the thing, right? The expectation of me as a fan for Leinster is ridiculous, because it is a much needed grind out hard work win. Like Ospreys targeted our breakdown. They got so many turnovers. A lot of our Welsh, Tipuric was exceptional.
They did well in the scrum as well, Ospreys.
I was sitting there going, oh my God, I've been in scrums where you're absolutely being demolished. It's demoralising, your confidence goes, and I just watched it capitulate. And I was trying to figure out, other than Alatoa being very extended, which obviously pressure from back and front, if you're hyperextended in the scrum, you're just not going to hold it.
Well, I'm going to ask you the question, Lindsay, because you're the only really resident front row in here.
Yeah.
Would Leinster scrum be a target for teams, or was it just a selection by Leinster?
Not usually, to be fair. It's kind of reminded me that time when Dan Sheehan had only come into Ireland and England targeted our scrum.
Yeah.
And
Well, technically, Ellis Kane targeted illegally, but if you look back at it.
He did. He was so angled. He was so angled. But the thing about it is, right, you're painting these good pictures. And obviously then Ospreys got in the head of the referee and painted some good pictures. So all the time when you're getting these 50-50s. Now, I don't think it was till the second half, till eventually... I can't remember his name. The Welsh tie-head got pinged for collapsing the scrum.
Was Francis playing toilet?
Yeah,
Thomas
he was,
Francis.
yeah.
Thomas Francis, yeah, that's it.
He actually had a really good game.
So they did a good, when you look back as well, in fairness, Alvin Jones was playing, Tipuric was playing, Francis playing, they had some of their big Welsh boys out.
Yeah, they did.
So it wasn't depleted, it was a good Osprey squad, and it was a fairly depleted Leinster squad. There wasn't too many internationals in there, a lot of young guys playing.
A lot of young guys.
You could give them a bit of credit, the fact that they still came away from Wales with a team with had the likes of Alvin Jones and Tipuric, as we said, with a win. Do you know?
Yeah.
It was a dirty night. Hugo Keenan, those nights where you expect Hugo to just kill it, he just gathers all these high balls, and he kind of had those, they were slipping, they were knocking on. Yeah. It was just kind of a night, and to be honest, I have to be testament to, they won dirty. It was a great away win.
You said there at the start there that it was a good match for Leinster, and they probably would have learned a lot from it, because they had the grind. They were losing. Their scrum was getting beaten. They're on the back foot. They didn't have all their top fellas playing, and they would have had to rally the troops and get a good win away from home on a cold January in Ospreys. That's going to stand to them more than going out and hockeying them 14-0.
100%.
Which is annoying, because Leinster are probably going to be better now off the back.
I know. But look, as we said, you said it wasn't the best weekend of rugby. We have to look back on the weather in UK and Ireland. Wasn't great over the weekend. There was no fancy rugby being played. There was just wins being grinded out across the board.
Yeah.
Because there were some horrific. I was out at a match myself on Saturday, in a lower league amateur match, and the rain coming down, it was sideways, the wind, and you're like, I'm I'm glad I'm not out there anyway. Standing on the wing,
the night you're happy not to be playing.
So it's tough, you know yourself. Trying to play a match in that weather is.
It is, but the weather didn't seem to stop Dan Sheehan, because he plucked the ball out of the air and burst through two guys to score his 8th try of the season. He's the only person ahead of him is Darcy Graham, who's a winger, dancing winger, to score for tries in the URC.
I think Tom Stewart is just behind him as a hooker, if I'm not mistaken, 7 tries.
Dan Sheehan is a human though, as we've already
Dan Sheehan's a hooker, and he scored 8 tries so far.
Listen, the boy's having a season.
And he doesn't even start all the time for Leinster, because now...
but it keeps him hungry, doesn't it?
Exactly, but that's it. I think he's hungry now, because
he's starving. that boy needs to be
competition
fed.
with Kelleher back. So I'm loving that battle between the two of them. It's unbelievable.
Kind of another list of hookers. Like we're talking about centres, we're talking about tens. Like Ireland hooker now. Like what?
But look at mine, Ireland hooker, Leinster hooker. You've got two of the best hookers in Europe in the same bloody team. It's absolutely insane. Like, and the bite that the two of those guys must have. Like, because if you were to pick a Lions team in the morning, the two of them would be in contention for a Lions team.
Yeah.
That's how good they are. So you've got these guys battling for. There's only one hooker jersey for Leinster, Ireland, and then like it could be a Lions one in a couple 2 years time as well. Because Keller was in the last Lions squad. Like, do you know he got called up? And if you were to pick one now, like Dan Sheehan would be ahead of him. So you can
Absolutely.
I'd 100% pick both of them over Cowan Dickey, who starts for England. Like I can't even think of anyone else playing hooker.
You'd have to do the two boys
They are
being
the two
a line.
best.
If you named the Lions squad tomorrow,
100%.
you'd have the two boys in there as 2 or 3 hookers more than likely.
Yeah,
which
we
is
are a little
absolutely
bit biased,
outrageous.
like, but yeah.
No, you know,
definitely.
let's call a spade. Like, you probably would, like.
Yeah,
you
they
really
are.
would.
They're class.
Well, Malcolm Marx comes to Munster, he won't be so biased.
Well, that's
but
the
anyway,
other
we'll
one.
move on to that.
We'll talk about that
Here
in a
we go.
while. Malcolm Marx has been supposedly offered a sizable contract to come to Munster after
Yes, please.
after the World Cup, which would be incredible.
You know what? You just need that bit of character, don't you? Because since O'Connell and O'Gara and
He
Jerry
is a
Flannery,
mutant.
do you know what I mean?
He's actually a mutant of a man. He's not human. He is like absolutely unbelievable. Like, I mean,
I'm pretty sure he made World Rugby Team of the Year, and he's on the bench for South
box,
Africa.
because he just comes on and just tears people apart in
He
over
gets
40
like
minutes.
15 minutes a game, and he's made the World Team of the
At least they
Year.
had rationale lads behind, wasn't it? Because he's just one of them lads who come off the bench. Like the NBA get paid, you know, the sixth man is the highest paid player, and he's kind of that NBA version
Yeah.
of sixth man.
I don't think that if Munster bought him over now, I don't think he'd be sitting on the bench.
No, he won't be sitting on the bench for Munster. But imagine that lads could be trophies back down south.
If we can just get a tight head now as well.
Yeah,
There we
listen,
go.
one step at a time, hon. We're not-
Well, before we get on to the Munster game and talk more about that, we just want to give a shout out to our very own Jimmy O'Brien, who scored the try the weekend, I think, in my opinion.
Last top
Class
3 defenders
try.
beaten.
Yeah,
wasn't it?
line break, dummy, straight in. Great. You could hear him cheering at the end as well. It meant a lot to him because
Yeah.
Leinster were struggling at that time.
That was the winning try
and
at
he
the end,
stepped up,
when you think about it, yeah. So
well
And he got
Jimmy.
very little ball, to be honest. So when he was called upon,
And he was on the wing that time, so he
Yep.
decided to play in the wing for
Fair
that
play
match.
to
Fair play to him.
man
And
to
a
me.
little kind of a funny point from the weekend was Leo Cullen was spotted at Welford Road for the Leicester Tigers game, which obviously started people murmuring, is he going to go from Leinster to Leicester? What's the story? Are you to be worried? I don't think. Maybe he's just over
he's got close
watching the
ties
game.
with Leicester, but you can look at that both ways. The
Sure,
fact
he
that
plays for- he
that's what I'm
played
saying,
for Leicester,
played for-
yeah,
you could
yeah.
go, or maybe he's just over visiting friends.
Yeah.
But like, it's also kind of funny that he's over there just as Bortwick has left. It's you know what I mean? Like, I mean, if you could have picked a better weekend to call over. Maybe he had this booked and planned weeks ago. And he was like, oh, I'm going over now. I'm off this weekend. I'm going to go over.
Could have been the delayed Christmas party with his Leicester teammates from
I
back in
don't
the
know.
day. He
Nah,
sold-
we're going to stick to the conspiracy
Yeah.
theory. Let's just
Add the
start to
conspiracy theory.
churn
He
it.
sold his house share in Dublin as well.
I heard
the
you,
house
boss.
sold out. The house
I
is
wish.
sold. Lancaster's after Racing.
Yeah, so we don't know.
Scott
Watch his
Robertson
space.
coming in next year, maybe.
Come here,
We'll
I'd-
take Scott Robertson, I tell you what.
Well, I'd say if one is going to go, I would think, to be honest, probably you're going to freshen everything up, maybe. Who knows?
Surely Leo Cullen's not going to go anywhere. He's young kids. He's a family in Leinster. He's Leinster through and through. He's in the best team in Europe, probably. Like, if he went over there, it would just be more
We're
of a
just putting
challenge.
pressure on him. Maybe he'd come on as a guest and answer these questions. Come on, Leo.
Anyways, on to our beloved Munster, Jason. They were at home in Musgrave Park and smashed the Lions 33-3.
Yep.
Ben Healy got a little run out at the start
Yeah.
for the reasons that it was very upsetting for us that he's leaving to go to Edinburgh, and everyone's saying it's because he's now declared for Scotland and he wants to play for Scotland in the upcoming World Cup because he can't really get into the Irish team.
Yeah.
And he's fallen out of favour in Munster as well, but funnily enough he's been starting the last couple of games or played in the last couple of games.
Yeah.
But what do you make of all that?
Look, I back his decision, to be honest with you. I think he's going to be a massive loss to Munster. Really big loss. I think he's probably our best kicker. I think he's a fantastic 10. I think we'll really miss him. I think they tried hard to keep him. But like, I wouldn't have any bad feelings for him going. I think he's an opportunity to go over to Scotland now to play international rugby. There was a great piece in the Irish Times over the weekend by Duncan Casey. Wrote a lovely piece in it, kind of saying, like, when your stock is high and when you have that opportunity, a lot of guys don't. They don't take the chance, and they they're happy to stick around being a second, third or fourth choice and get their contract and go, I play for Munster. And like he was saying, he had offers with France, like back when he had that good run when he was in the Heineken Cup team and he was doing well, and then he turned it down, and then he ended up getting injured, and then over the next 3 years he only played 6 times for Munster, having played like 40 games in 2 years before that or whatever it was. And like, you know, this is his chance to go. I mean, Crowley's after coming onto the scene now. Carberry's ahead of him. there's not much chance of him getting into that Ireland squad. He can go over to Scotland now. It's his mother who's Scottish. It's not like he's have to find in some second or third cousins, uncles, grannies who's related to Scotland. It's his mother who's Scottish. He probably has lots of Scottish family. He's going to go over there. Edinburgh, a good side, competing high in the URC.
Yeah, they do, man.
And there's like with who's this injured at the moment, Pat?
Hastings.
Adam Hastings is out injured at the moment. Blair Kinghorn is a 15 who plays 10. You know, so that he could be in the Six Nations for Scotland next month.
Well, you can't blame him, can you? Because we kind of see it. Obviously, it's a sport for us, but at the end of the day, the lads have to look at the job side of it. Do you know?
Yeah.
And if you want to, you know, move up the ladder in your career, you'd make that move. Do you know what I mean? If it was something, and look, it's sad to see him go. Obviously, Leinster through and through, but you know, he has been exceptional for Munster when he's come in and when he's been called upon. So it'd be nice to probably for him just to be rewarded with a run, and if he got an opportunity internationally, you can't really begrudge him that, can you?
Yeah, well, that's it. People are kind of giving out that the Irish let him go and we should have held on to him. But if you look at it, he didn't even make the Emerging Ireland tour down to South Africa. And if you're not making that, and you haven't even been called in for like a training session into the Andy Farrell squad, you're probably not in the plans for a while. And he's third choice in Munster for sure, behind Carberry and Crowley. And that's not saying he's a bad player. No. He's just fallen out of favour a little bit, and there's too many people there. But the issue is, if you kind of look into the future now, what if, God forbid, one of the boys, Carberry or Crowley, gets injured and there's a European Cup game and it's a semi-final away, and then one of the boys gets hurt, and then who's playing 10? Like, we're going to get someone from the academy.
I think what they're doing there now at the moment, what I heard it during the week, was apparently they're bringing Jake Flannery back from Ulster. Okay. So apparently that's a funny one, because he was let go last year because he was too far down the pecking order, and he went to Ulster. But
he's
now
only a year in Ulster,
so he's only a year in Ulster. So now apparently they're going to bring.
We've chatted about this on the
He's
show,
only
actually.
19 or 20. Is he? He's 20, isn't he?
He's young
Kid.
20s, yeah.
He's very, very young. So there's talks of bringing him back, because I think even with him coming back, I don't know if we have another 10 coming up in the academy. I'm not privy to what's going on there, but Crowley's been used a lot at 12 at the moment. So like there's games there where we might have Carberry at 10, 12. Are we going to go back relying on like Rory Scanlon as a backup 10, or I still think you need another 10 in there, to be honest with you.
I think you need 3 operating 10s in the squad in case one gets injured, because you always need 2 in every match day squad.
Yeah.
So now there's no obvious third choice 10 in Munster anymore, which is an issue for Munster. So I don't know. There must be something going on. It must be that Jake Flannery thing, because you can't be going into European Cups and stuff not having a third choice 10.
I thought Jake Flannery was a winger. What did I think that?
No, he's a 10.
Well, he plays 15 as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's kind of not a great move for Munster, but they tried to keep him by all accounts.
Yeah.
But the thing is, for Ben Healy, I can see it, as you said there, Jason, you know, Lindsay, is playing as a professional rugby player. You're lucky if you get 10 years.
Yeah.
Like, very lucky. It's a very small career, and you have to go where the money is. You have to build your career, and it doesn't look like he's getting anywhere near the Irish team anytime soon. So it's fair enough. He probably will play for Scotland very soon. It could happen that Ireland play Scotland in the World Cup.
Could you imagine that?
John Cooney at 9 and Ben Healy at 10. So John Cooney's declared as well. Imagine that.
You couldn't write it, lads.
But
Imagine that Scotland knock Ireland out of the World Cup with
Ben Healy kicks the penalty.
yeah. Kind of that one, that Benetton, like the Benetton one that finished us for the
thanks.
weekend.
if it gets to a stage in the World Cup where Scotland are starting Ben Healy and John Cooney, it actually is a good situation for Ireland, because it means Scotland are in a bad place because they're playing these guys who've just come in. Like,
it's going to be Ali Price and Finn Russell.
It will,
like, you know. Unless, but you know, what if they get injuries?
Yeah. But if I was in the shoes of Healy or John Cooney, I'm like, totally fair enough, man. Go do your thing.
Yeah.
Go get your contract. Like, take the bias out of it and the patriotism out of it. The lads are just following their careers and trying to do the best for themselves.
And John Cooney had, like, you know, he had obviously a bit of a dip in form towards the end of last year, but to be honest, his move to Ulster really ignited his
John
career.
Cooney's a class 9, lads.
And imagine him with Finn Russell. You know, they're so unpredictable, and you know they're not afraid to play. I mean, the worst thing in a rugby is, you know, when a team is keep offloading and moving back, and you can't set up your defensive line. You're like, oh God, when is this going to stop? You know.
Yeah.
So
I'm actually happy for Ben Healy in the sense that I went over to do a fit series with World Rugby, and we went to Edinburgh, and I was in and around their squad and their training pitches and stuff, and there's such a nice group of lads there. He's going to slot straight in and have great crack, and Edinburgh is a good city as well.
I love
It's a class city.
Yeah.
It's an absolutely brilliant city. Remember when I missed the show last year and I ended up getting stranded over in Newcastle and I had to get a train to Scotland? I just went to Edinburgh for the day on my own. Like, and I've been there a few times, like, and even just walking around on my own, stranded there, I was like, this is such a cool city. You get there on the Christmas markets and stuff, and it's a really cool place to go.
Yeah, I'm a Limerick man, so are you, Jason, but Edinburgh is a bit more crack, I think.
We'll bring the show to Edinburgh for Ben Healy's debut.
Yeah, Ben, bring us over. We'll come over and interview over there. We're big fans of you here. Sorry, we could talk about that all day, but let's actually just talk about the game pretty quickly. So, Munster won 33-3 against the Lions, as I said, and it was a good performance. Did you watch it, Lindsay? You did?
I did. Do you know what? Nice to see some nice changes. Kendall was in there. Jack O'Donoghue was in there. He captained the squad, got a try. The night was absolutely miserable. It was. I was like, is that sleet or rain?
It's
what
always
is it?
weather in Cork for some reason. I don't know why. The rain comes down harder in Cork.
I mean, your man that you picked off for us last year, Scott Buckley, came on or played and had 2 tries.
Yeah, I don't know what the story with him this year, because I've been clamouring all year and I've been clamouring last year as well. I don't know if hasn't been fit or if he's been injured or if Rowntree just doesn't really want to give him a chance yet because he's so young. But like, I think like anytime he came in, I remember he came in last year against Wasps and I think he hit was a 12 out of 12 lineouts, and he was one of the best players. He scored a try. He got man of the match. Came on there with 3 minutes gone. Who started? The Barron started, went off injured. He had to come on, score 2 tries. He's only 22 years of age. Like the rest of our hookers haven't been performing this year at all. Like, so I don't see why he hasn't been given more game time. Maybe this will be a kickstart for him, like, and we'll get to see him play, because I think he's a fantastic athlete, a great player. He's still a bit green. You saw he messed up one of the lineups towards the end, like, but overall his throwing was better than what we've seen from the other hookers this year. And he got 2 tries as well, and I think he's a great player, and I'd like to see more of him in Munster because it's a problem area for us, which is why we're looking at bringing in Malcolm Marks.
Exactly.
Well, yeah, you need consistency in your throwing, and especially when Munster rely so much on their maul and their line out setup. So I think give him enough. Give him a chance.
We have Niall Scannell, Diarmuid Barron, Scott Buckley are probably our 3 hookers. Like, all of them are decent players, but none of them are like world beaters like a Heffernan or a Sheehan. So maybe Malcolm Marks coming in would be that kind of like star player, because we haven't really had a star hooker since Jerry Flannery. As producer Pat is a big fan of Jerry Flannery.
Learn off Malcolm Marks.
You took the words right, Emma. The big thing we don't always look at, or somebody who isn't in the environment, is that Malcolm Marks is the player he is, and he's world class. But what he'll do for the young players around him and bring up their level, is
he's
going to be
30, like, and Scott Buckley's only 22. So bring Malcolm Marks in for 3 or 4 years. Incredible. What he's going to do, and
some of the tricks of the trade.
Yeah, and you need, like, you always need 2 to 3 hookers. Like, so it's not like Malcolm Marks comes in and plays every single game and Scott Buckley doesn't play. Scott Buckley's going to get plenty of games, but he's going to get there, train and play alongside Malcolm Marks. And what that could do for that young fella is
a great sign.
Phenomenal.
Just to give those guys, Diarmuid Barron and Scott Buckley, some one-on-one coaching there. It'd be unreal. So hopefully we get him over after the World Cup. But also Liam Coombs was on the wing for Munster.
Great score.
What a try. Counter-attack. Did the whole thing himself.
He gathered an exit kick, and he just tucked it under the arm, bit of footwork, and off he went under the post. It was a great try. And that's what I'm loving about Munster. Graham Rowntree and his team aren't afraid to actually rotate players and give players, so we're seeing that now. Leinster, I suppose, trying to deepen that squad. And also your tries, the variance between your tries, like Paddy Patterson just sniping, like he's starting to use his brain and attack what's in front of him. Liam Coombs with a great try, and then obviously we saw the Maul tries as well. So it's lovely, the variation and what Munster can bring now to opposition. So
it was always going to take time. People forget that as well. I know we waited for long enough with Larkham to implement his game plan, and it just never came. But
it's still in the post.
It's still in the post, Larkham's game plan. But like, when you look at, like, I was kind of thinking there so when we started off with Leamy and Rowntree coming in, and I'm forgetting his name now. Our back coach, Mike Prendergast.
Yeah.
So it took time, right? You can slowly see now that this game plan that they're trying to play is starting to come to fruition. You know, we're not relying on bloody my pal Van Grand's all big forwards kick the ball in the air, absolute nonsense. They're actually looking to play a bit of rugby. And if you look back, no, I'm not comparing us to that level, but if you look back a couple of years ago when Andy Farrell first came into Ireland, like, there was people were calling for his head because we weren't playing good rugby, but you could see what they were trying to do, but it just wasn't working. It took time, and then all of a sudden it burst onto the scene then a few months later, and it's like, all these passes are sticking. All these moves are working. Oh my God, everything is. And now we're bloody number 1 in the world. And we beat New Zealand in the summer, and unbeaten, beat the world champions. Like, these game plans take time. You know, playing rugby, you can't just 100%. Come in. I mean, you can implement. That's why you see the overturn in soccer and managers. You can implement a plan into a team in a soccer pitch very quickly. Rugby is such a complex sport. You guys come in, you've got a whole new set of lineup moves. You've got a whole new way of scrummaging. You've got a whole new way. You've got 10 new backline moves. You've got all this. It takes time, and then the players have to come in and slot in and understand, okay, this is your job, this is what you do here. The team changes every week.
Yeah.
It's very hard. So they're getting to that stage now, and maybe they will kick on from this. Like, they're not going to kick on to Leinster levels for a long time, but
they'll get there. That's
all
what
we
we're
want to go
building.
is just keep going up instead of going sideways or downwards like we did with Van Gran and Larkin for 3 years.
You know, in the game of rugby, you have to square up and go forward.
Yeah, but you said it there, Lindsay. You said Leinster-esque, which is kind of true in the sense that, like, Kelvin Nash played for a few weeks. I think he's on a break now. He played really well. Liam Coombs comes in, plays really well. We moved Gavin Coombs then, who's his cousin, funnily enough, into the second row, played really well. So interchange and everyone's doing really well. And there's like good depth in Munster. Like, we haven't even mentioned like Andrew Conway, Simon
Still
Zebo.
come back soon, yeah.
Those guys are still to come
Keith
back
Ayres,
in.
yeah.
Conor
Ayres came back
Murray
in
was
the
on
last
the
few
bench.
weeks, yeah.
Which is great. Craig Casey, he's
Tyg
off
Burns
on
on holidays,
somewhere.
yeah.
So Tyg Burns. So well done, Munster. You're looking good. 33-3 is a great win against Lions.
Just a shout out as well, actually, before we move on to Holly Davidson in that match. A lot of people were saying that
she
to
was
me.
excellent.
She was excellent in that game. Just like, it's such a breath of fresh air to see a referee who isn't fond of the whistle and just let them play. I couldn't believe the first 20 minutes. I was like, tries them in a penalty or anything. She's just letting them play. This is fantastic.
That's what they
Do you
say
know-
about good referees,
And I
isn't
think,
it?
yeah, that's it. Like, they shouldn't be fond of the whistle. I think she's taken over as the first all-female panel for a Challenge Cup game next week. I'm not sure which game it is, but do you know, she's a fantastic referee. Really good referee.
She's really built in confidence. I've had the pleasure of Holly. I'm normally on the wrong side when I know what's new. But to be honest, she's really come up, and she got the World Cup final, if memory serves me right, this year
And the
for the Women's
Sevens
World Cup
final as
and
well.
the Sevens World Cup. So she's just on an upward trajectory. Her confidence and the exposure to games, she's just improving every game. So fair play, Holly.
She's class. And
There's some season rest I could learn from her, like to you know, not be fond of your
you
whistle.
took the words out of my mouth, Jason. I was just going to say Wayne Barnes could have a look at Holly
It's called telepathy.
and just be
Called
like,
telepathy.
let the game play. Don't make it about you.
Yeah.
So Holly, well done. You're leading the charge. We love you here. We'll get you on for a chat hopefully at some stage. Ulster, lads. They've lost another game. I think that's 5 games out of 6 they've lost now in the last couple of weeks. They lost away to Benetton 31-29. Now, in fairness, Benetton is a tough place to go now in the last couple of seasons.
Fair.
They're not the team they used to be. They're not walkovers. But they had a good win, like, and they beat Ulster fair and square. Did you see it at all, Lindsay?
I thought like we said, there wasn't anything major to light up, but that game, Benetton played some absolutely lovely rugby. They kept the ball alive. They kept moving the ball. When your number 8 does a kind of, I don't know,
Crossfield kick.
Kick to your winger.
It was a
You
savage
just
try.
know it was a savage try. You just know it's not going to be your day. And I think, to be honest, I'm not going to kind of take the rug from under Ulster. I think Benetton really were deserving of their win. Look on the last penalty, but at the end of the day, I think they were down to 14 men. They managed the game well. They kept the ball in hand. They looked for that penalty and they won. And I think Leinster, if memory serves me right, just got away with a win at skin of their teeth going away to Benetton. So it's not an easy place to go, but I think they were deserving of their win with some of the rugby they
They were,
played.
and they were actually down to 14 men, I think, Benetton, when they had to get the last penalty there. So Benetton are doing very well.
The tough
Very
kick
good.
as well. Was it 45 minutes out from Reno Smith to
Yes.
kick? Like, it wasn't an easy
Right.
And it was
Smith,
right
yeah.
on, as you look at it, right foot kicker over on the right touchline. So, I thought it.
So the thing about Ulster, lads, is that they do this every season. Do you know what I mean?
Have a dip.
They have a dip, like, and it always happens to them. Like, I remember we were talking to Darren about that last year, and it always happens to them when it gets to the important games. And they started the season so well. They were going out absolutely baiting everyone. It's like, Jesus, this is the year now. Ulster really look good.
I think they've gone down to 6. Have they? 56
No, they're in
after 3 minutes?
4th.
Into 4, but like, it's not the first time this has happened. Ulster, and I'd love to know what it is. Is it a mentality thing that they're?
Yeah,
is
but
this-
we said it at the start of the season. We're like, geez, Ulster in second, they're chasing down Leinster. They could do it. And now we're like, oh, they're slipping down that board very quickly. They're down into 4th, as we were saying there. And it's all happened since that Leinster game in RDS. They haven't got back into form since then. It just got over Connacht at Christmas time, barely. But like, I was thinking as I was watching Benetton scoring tries, going down the wing and stuff, I was like, it must be a dressing room issue or something in Ulster.
I have to agree with you, because one of Benetton's try, they had actually no right to score it. It kind of came within, say, inside the 10 metre, Ulster's 10 metre, and I think it was Billy Burns missed the tackle. But like,
They were scrapping or something in Ulster.
I don't know what happened, but Ulster had numbers up, and it was like, it was a poor try. It was a weak try to give away. And I thought in that split moment, I was like, something's not right here.
And their heads
Mentally,
went down and
heads
stuff.
went
Did you
down.
see it? I noticed that as well. I was
Yeah.
like, what's going on with these Ulster guys? Like,
mentality thing.
yeah.
Is it? And I know Dan McFarlane, he's a good guy. He's doing a great job there, but like, he's publicly kind of had a go with them a couple of times, and I'm kind of thinking, right, has that had an impact?
Maybe.
I mean, the team they put out was still
Great
exceptional.
team. It's still a great team. Well, Dan McFarlane is under a lot of pressure now, and there's kind of talks on social media and stuff about Mark McCall to get him back from Saracens, but why would he bother his arse, to be honest? Jeremy Davidson taking over, or even some Ulster fans are calling for the old boss Brian McLaughlin to come back, who got them to the 2012 Heineken Cup final. Any insight into that, Jason?
No, I haven't heard much of it. But I mean, Stuart McCall would be fantastic. But I mean, Saracens are 14 points clear at the top of Premiership at the moment, and still in Europe. I mean, I just don't see him leaving Saracens. But I don't know. He's there a long time. He would be a huge. I'd love to see him back in Irish rugby in general. I just think he'd be great for the game. But I don't know. I mean, I still I do rate Dan McFarlane. I think maybe upon it's. You're being a little bit hasty there. You're being a little bit hasty there. I mean, just they're fourth in the table. I mean, come on.
I think they just need to have, instead of a training session, maybe go for a couple of points, just lay it all out on the table and just reset again. I think, look, we have a blip, and they have, they're away to La Rochelle. Am I right, next week for the European
That's the thing.
Cup?
They don't have easy games coming up.
No, but I think this could be the defining moment to just imagine a away win there. And I know they got a big win last weekend against Toulouse, was it? Which they got their monkey off the back, and they're moving up the table. So, look, this is the thing about European Cup. It's like the FA Cup.
But they
it's
lose
like
that,
any
they
of
could
that.
be out to us, and it's easier said than done going over beating La Rochelle in France.
Well, Irish teams back against the wall.
Yeah, it's
stranger
true.
things have
Yeah,
happened.
well, if they've done it before, they did it a few seasons back against Clermont when they got that bonus point try, where they had to win it. So you never know. I
Watch the
wouldn't bet
space.
against them.
No, but I think, like you said, ever since that Leinster game, it's kind of just been downward slide. And look, we wish them the best, but something's got to change for them now soon.
Yeah, well, there's no EGMs needed just yet up in Kingspan because they're still sitting in fourth in the URC table. So they're doing okay. They're 7 wins from 11, so it's actually decent enough. So it's not that bad.
Just high expectations.
It's just recent weeks.
It's just where they came from. They're coming down, but I think they'll be all right. Munster sitting in 7th, below Benetton. Benetton are in 6th, which is amazing for them. So they did go against a good team down in Italy there, in fairness to them. So we're moving on now. That's all the provinces done for that weekend. And another thing we want to talk about, Lindsay, your expertise is the women's Interpros.
Yes, myself and Barra went along on Saturday to Energia. We had the pleasure of seeing Leinster open up their campaign with a win against Connacht. So Connacht brought a good battle, to be honest. They made it frustrating for Leinster, but Leinster came away 38-10 winners, and Jenny Murphy got 2 tries, I think. She wanted the third, but she didn't get it. But she's back to her best, and probably if I'm probably... It'd be harsh because it's kind of like the men's. There was an expectation there, and seeing some of the phases they put through and some of the play, they just kind of shot themselves in the foot, and they kind of settled once they got once Ella Roberts got the try. I think the first try for Leinster, so she played fullback, a good Wicklow product of Wicklow rugby there, along with Josh van der Flair. So it was kind of a tick in the box, but I tell you that I'm excited to see the battle this weekend in Musgrave Park. I think that's who's hosting. Munster will host Leinster, and there'll be some great battles there. Jenny Murphy against Enya Breen, Aoife Dalton against I can't remember her second name. Aoife Doyle on the wing against who played in the wing for Leinster.
You're having a shocker at names today, Lindsay.
Oh, jeez, I am. Do you know, Monday morning. I've only had 2 coffees.
Munster versus Leinster, coming up. There'll be a big game because Munster beat Ulster 34-0 at Musgrave Park, and Leinster obviously beat Connacht 38-10. So Munster and Leinster are obviously the 2 dominant forces.
Yeah, but Ulster had a good squad. I just think, to be honest, they didn't look like they had cohesion. Their tackling was shocking. Dervla Nickavard had a great game at 8 and then moved to hooker for Munster when Chloe Pearce came on at 8 in the second half. So, Munster are flush with some hugely experienced internationals and ex-internationals and have been around a long time. But Ulster still had some big names and they just didn't perform, in my opinion. So, but I think the winner of this weekend against Munster Leinster will be the winner of the Interpros. I hope I'm not being prejudiced against Connacht and Ulster. But as I said, there are 4 great teams. It's great to see on TG Carr. There's some exceptional talent. Anna O'Brien had her first start at 10 for Leinster, and she's kind of putting pressure on. Nicole Fowley had a great game for 10 she had a fabulous crossfield kick for Connacht's try. So there were some exceptional performances, and I think it bodes well and puts a bit of pressure on probably Greg McWilliams to pick his squad for the Six Nations with so many players performing.
That's what you want.
That's one other question I want to ask you before we move on about these women's Interpros. How good is that in order to make the Irish women's team better? Is it really going to help these girls playing each other week in, week out?
I don't think so, but as far as I'm aware, there's going to be a Celtic Celtic Cup team chosen from these Interpros, so it'll be players from this team, and they'll play against Welsh and Scotland teams. So it's kind of now a bridging, I suppose, to get players from the Interpros, get them exposed to more international standard players and different players, and try to develop that way. So it's we're not there fully in how we align the club. It was probably the first time I struggled being missing from that environment since I retired from international rugby, because obviously we finished the AIL at Christmas, and you kind of feel for a lot of players there's this grey area and being obsolete, where there's still a lot there to give to the game. So we will get there, but for now I think it's a nice step on bridging gap between the Interpros, which kind of sometimes you're kind of questioning all the time what's their relevance, and then they'll go, we'll choose a team and we'll go play in a kind of international club stage. So we're trying to progress it on similar to the kind of URC. It'll never get there right now with the player pool that we have, but at least it's a step in the right direction. So I'll be interested to see how those games go and what players are selected, and kind of probably will bring in the argument, do we get Irish players who will get exposed in Six Nations, or do we try and blood new players on international level?
Okay, guys, we want to move on to the Jake Heenan interview. Our very own Pat caught up with him as part of the Rugby Joe's A Season With series. So have a listen to this.
So I moved over here off the back of a shoulder surgery. So I didn't play at all my last season. I played a handful of games last season. And then, mate, that season, my shoulder actually struggled quite a bit. This was my left shoulder. So my right one was the one I had 3 surgeries on. My left one was at me. And first thing Pat did was, the team did, was put me with the injured group and gave me a couple of months just to kind of build that up. You know what I mean? So I wasn't chucked in the deep end. I made my Prem debut in February, I think, that season. You know what I mean? Which wasn't what I had anticipated and wasn't how I'd set myself, you know what I mean? I'd kind of set myself to come in and crack into it. And then I think the other thing here is it's been very competitive for positions, you know what I mean? Like there's so many good players. It's very hard to stay the number 1-7 for as long, but the quality in the squad. So which I think I found at Connacht, I think I played 76 games, something like that. I came off the bench 2, and they were both in 2013. They were my first 2 games. September 2013, Zebra, and then away to Cardiff. And then every other game from that I ended up starting. And I'm not saying that was because I was a rock star, but that was, you'd get injured, you'd be out for, my last right shoulder was out for 11 months. And you come back and, there's not that there's no one else, but the squad's run very thin again, and other guys are picking up knocks, and you kind of needed to step right back in there, right? So, so that's something I think that's helped me is I think resource medically as well. Like I'm very fortunate here. I get looked after very well. I know all the coaches very well, so I've got a relationship there. If I'm not 100%, it's not. It's not that pressure that I have to push myself through something I'm uncomfortable with if my body's not right. And then as well, I would say, geez, I'd probably be 50% bench. You know what I mean? So my minutes would be a lot lower than what I would have been at Connacht as well. So there's that too. But yeah, I think probably one of the big ones is that resource medically here has been really helpful.
As you were chatting there, I was actually just looking up your stats. 96% starter for Connacht, and then 55% for Bristol. It
wasn't close. Yeah. But the likes of Dan Thomas is he's a phenomenally talented player. Sam Jeffries has decided he plays 7 now as well, but he's incredible. Obviously, Jack Lamb was here when I first arrived. Fitzharding's come through, and he was one of the best back rowers in the Prem last year. So mate, there's quality across the board, particularly I think in the back row, so which is great. It kind of competitively, we all sort of push each other, we all kind of grow together, but as well, if you have a bit of a knock, there's normally not that same pressure to, you know what I mean, if you're injured, you can be injured and someone else can step up and do the job.
Yeah, and it's not that kind of that guilt of kind of missing out or anything like that, but
or rush back or anything like that, right? Yeah. I was actually kind of like Pat's funny because I was talking to, I came over I think for your team photo shoot day earlier in the season, and I was chatting to AJ, and it was kind of funny that he's been brought back in, and because I always remember
Pat's kind of in a weird way, he's missed over here in Ireland, like, because he was such a personality. But you know, is he a big for you? Was he the big selling points, you know, when he was going to Bristol and kind of come join me on the journey kind of a thing?
Yeah. Look, I've always enjoyed playing with Pat. I think, you know, I think Pat he's a unique individual. He's one of, you know, like a lot of directors and GMs and, you know, Shay Livingstone. I don't know if you come across him.
Yeah.
He's my agent now. He's a good friend of mine, but he's another one. You know, there's, you know, I'm fortunate enough to meet another couple. Tom Tainton, our COO here, like very, very driven. You know, very, very intelligent, very driven, who work and surround themselves in these massive cultures. And those are the sorts of people that I like to align myself with, and I like to spend a lot of time with, and I like to learn from. So, you know, I'm fortunate enough to have worked with Pat and to continue to kind of work with him, and now be in that sort of leadership team where we're trying to drive things forward here. And, you know, so yeah, I suppose the big one for me is finding people that I can learn from, that can sort of motivate and get the best out of me. And yeah, look, I think he's fantastic. Yeah.
And then like you're like, even now, like lately, it's funny, even since we last talked, I was kind of saying, I've had a clatter of kids, and probably whatever hair was going to lose. Your nose is going a little bit more over this way the whole time. But like, is it kind of funny to look at yourself now as like not a veteran, but like experienced? Like, you know, like you're in with a different bunch of lads in the main squad, like you're not with the young guys anymore. Is that a kind of thing you have to kind of learn to kind of cope with as it goes along?
Yeah, well, mate, that sneaks up on you. Like, I was a young fella for so long, and then you turn around one day and you're not. But look, I think the thing for me is like I definitely approach the game. You know, I approach it a lot differently. Like, I was a very strong-willed, bullheaded young player, and look, I think that was what got me in the door. You know, that's what I had a lot of success off there, you know, and I made no excuse about where I wanted to go and the successes I wanted to have. And you know, and I suppose that, you know, a few injuries, you're sort of looking at retirement at 24, 25 years old. You know, and then obviously now of my wife and a baby on the way, so it puts things in perspective a little bit. So sort of understanding maybe the big picture a bit more, I'd say I probably have a more rounded experience, and you know, and the way I approach the game. So, but I suppose number one for me though is Manu, I still love playing. I love getting out on the pitch. I love throwing the ball around. I really do, and I'd like to think if that stopped, I'd walk away from the game. You know, I'd go do something else. But you know, number one is I really enjoy playing, and it is funny to see, you know, the way my career's kind of gone and where I'm at now. But I'm very fortunate to have, like I said, to have sort of almost done this. It's almost like an apprenticeship, having done it with someone like Pat, where culture is such an important thing, and you know, and obviously in a high performance environment where being competent, being good at your job, being able to deliver that day in, day out, whether you want to or not, you know, that sort of thing is has been a really big learning for me.
How have you found the captaincy then as well? Like, you know, any kind of major changes, or do you have to kind of carry yourself in a different way? Be a guy who's available for people to come and talk to as well. Like, how have you found all that type of, you know, that big change? Yeah, I mean, look, I had done a lot of captaincy when I was younger, so it wasn't something that I was uncomfortable with. It wasn't something. I'd gone away from it, but it had become less, you know, I'd sort of put myself less in those positions at a point in my career where I'd probably felt that, you know, shit, with the quality around me, I really need to, you know, knuckle down and get my things right. Look, mate, it doesn't change a whole lot. Like, I think my role in the team now, I think I have to be that every day regardless, you know what I mean? Even if I'm injured from training, I have to be able to have honest conversations with people. I have to pull people up if I don't think things are good enough, and I have to be able to celebrate people if I think they're doing a really good job, you know, and that's part of the challenge of leadership. So then I think captaincy, it's much the same. It's trying to have a hold on the game, which I think I have a pretty good understanding, and then I say dealing with refs slightly is, refs are trying to move the game. They don't want to muck around. They don't want to talk. They want to make their call and move on. So a little bit of ref management, which I've had to learn a little bit more of this year. But I suppose it's been a huge privilege. Would be the only other thing I'd say is to lead out some of the quality we have here. It's it's very, very proud moments anyway.
Brilliant. All right, listen, nice talking to you again, Jake.
You too, mate. You too. Take care, eh?
Great stuff. Obviously, you can catch the rest of that a season with series on Rugby Joe's Instagram.
Yeah, it was a good chat with Jake Heenan there. Thanks, Pat, for getting it. European Cup is up next week, guys. We have a couple of good games. We've Gloucester versus Leinster. Leinster are away. We've Munster versus Northampton, which is always just a great European Cup game.
Yeah.
La Rochelle are taking on Ulster. Ulster are going away to La Rochelle to play Roger's team, and that could have Ulster eliminated. So hopefully that doesn't happen. But kind of a bit of a talking point around the European Cup is the EPCR chairman, Dominic McKay, told BT Sport that there will be cup changes for the Champions Cup next season. Surely going back to the kind of groups of four, which is always kind of what we see as a Heineken Cup, isn't it?
Yeah, why change something that worked?
You know what I mean? The reason they changed it in the first place was they changed it because of COVID. They brought it from 20 teams to 24 teams because they didn't want to, because the season ended early. It's like, it's unfair. You might have qualified if you did. But then they just didn't get rid of it. No. And now it's still there. And it's been, is it the third season now, Pat, or the second season? I think it's the third season we've had it now, of 24 teams. And it has taken all the fun out of it.
Yeah.
Because we're looking at tomorrow now. So Munster lost at home to Toulouse, their first game. Normally you lose a home game, like you're in big trouble. You're in big trouble because you got to win your home games and get probably one away win or maybe at least one bonus point home win. Now, if they beat Northampton, they're pretty much qualified. Yeah. Do you know? And like I know they beat them away, but they can still lose to Toulouse away and qualify. Yeah. Like Connacht got through last year, one game, qualified. It's just, it takes all the fun out of it. And then the fun part was last round, permutations. They're probably going to keep the round of 16 in, which I disagree with. I think it should go back straight to quarterfinals, but it's more money in, it's more games. But yeah, I mean, although Pat was saying like before the we went on air today, like, and I'd be worried because he could be right. Like, what if they add more teams to it and make it into? But if they did it that way, maybe add on an extra pool, so at least you have those pools of 5 to make it entertaining and to make it tougher to get through. And it's just,
because all cup competitions, no matter what sport, the excitement is the knockout and seeing some big teams, like even in the World Cup we're talking about, South Africa, Scotland, Ireland, so it'll be big teams gone at early rounds, so that's the excitement. You never want to see it, but I don't know why they didn't look at changing it back. And I do get the money in the round of 16 and all, but don't take away the excitement from us.
Make it harder then, and it's going to make the Premiership and the URC and the top 14 and stuff, it's going to make that more competitive because you've got less teams and make it harder to qualify. Make it more difficult to qualify. Make it look how coveted and look how big it is in the Premier League in football. The top 4 get to Champions League. And the elite teams get in. Imagine every year, you only had 5 teams in the URC to qualify for the Champions Cup, and you just made it the elite competition. That's what it was before.
What it was before, yeah. They had the groups of 4 and we had the back-to-back fixtures. Remember, sometimes Munster would have to go away to Claremont to get a win, and then they come back to Thomond and stuff, or the big game against Sale in Old Thomond Park, things like that.
The Gloucester game, the miracle match where you had to get the 4 tries and stuff. Those days are gone.
And you'd be having out the calculator. How are we going to win this game?
That's what you need.
25 tellies looking at everyone going.
Some of those games. I remember we played Racing one year before they got super big, but they were on the way up. They had Carter. We had to get a bonus point against Racing and Thomond Park, and we got it. The Sale match with Wally scoring that try, and that was the year we went on to win it. So do you know what I mean? That try was so important that we were going to go out, and we ended up winning it for the first time thanks to an 80th minute try by David Wallace in the corner to get that bonus point to get you through the group, and that's what made it the best competition in rugby. Exactly. And it's losing that now at the moment.
We can't lose,
and we don't want to lose that. We don't.
Yeah, hopefully they go back to that because it was a winning product, as you said, Lindsay. Don't fix something that's not broken.
No.
Exactly. And we want to chat about the upcoming Six Nations, guys. So the squad should be named this week. I think England said they're going to name theirs. We presume Ireland and the other guys are going to name theirs as well. Johnny Sexton looks to be okay and cleared to come back and play. But we were kind of chatting off air, guys. do we need him to play? Just mind him. Just get him to the World Cup. What do we think?
Yeah, no, I'm going to stick to it now that we're live on air. I'm going to stand by it. It's probably the worst thing for us because we need our hand forced to give the likes of Jack Crowley some time, Joey Carby some time.
We should probably allow like one of the Byrne brothers to come in or something.
Absolutely. Now, I didn't think Harry had the greatest game at 10. Unfortunately, you never want to see it against the Ospreys. But Harry did come on and he settled. And I think, that kick to win that game against Australia, after being plucked from his couch, to
Ross,
cover.
Come on, yeah.
Oh, sorry, Ross.
yeah.
In our autumn series there was exceptional. And I think he deserves that time. I think we spoke about the game. He got his start against England when we got thumped by 50 points. And 10 is such a pivotal position. It's like a centre half in soccer. It's like your point guard in basketball. It takes time and maturity, and it takes, unfortunately, those really harsh learnings. You also have to build up that half-back partnership with your 9-10, and you're pivotal in all decision making. Do you know what I mean? You're linking with your captain, with your pack leader. So I think, and this is what my question is: what way is Andy Farrell and his team going to run the Six Nations for us? Are we going to continue to blood those who've come through, like the Jack Crowleys from the Emerging Ireland, into the squad? Or are we just going to stick to the tried and tested that we know work for us?
I think we'd benefit more from having Jack Crowley, Joey Carberry and Ross Byrne in playing the whole Six Nations than we would than winning a Grand Slam with Johnny Sexton.
Absolutely, I agree.
And I stand by that. We would benefit more. Do you know what I mean? And that sounds horrible. Look, lads, we've done it. We've had the fairy tale Johnny Sexton drop goal against Paris, and we've had the fairy tale Ronan O'Gara drop goal against Wales. We've had we beat England. Like, can you get any better than we won a Grand Slam in Twickenham on Paddy's Day against England? We can't get any higher than Six Nations. We've done it all. Yeah. We've done as high. There is no other perfect way to win a Six Nations than O'Gara's drop goal against Wales and beating England on Paddy's Day in Twickenham.
And so Johnny's kicking Paris.
And Johnny's kicking Paris. We've done it all. We've had all our fair
I get your point 100%.
We want to win a World Cup.
We just want it all, you see. That's because we're number one in the world. We want to win it all.
And we're not making any excuses for it.
Yeah, exactly. But I do think that we need to have the long-term picture here, and the World Cup is what we want.
That's what we want.
Done, as you said, we've won the Six Nations, we've won the Grand Slams. If we do it again, it'll be like, oh, unreal, class. But we've seen it before.
Yeah.
Obviously, it'd be class to do it. But I do agree with Lindsay. What you're saying is, let the young lads play. Let them do the thing. They could have Johnny in consulting for the whole Six Nations and be in there, but let the guys play. But look, what's happened is I think Johnny's actually going to be alright, and he probably will play the big games.
He'll end up playing probably 4 of the 5 games. You know what I mean?
Maybe they do. Maybe look, we're not Andy Farrell and Mike Hatt and all those guys. Maybe their plan is to have Johnny in and build their playing platform for the World Cup. Do you know what I mean?
I think a bit like we spoke about Malcolm Marx. I think the other bit, what mightn't be any harm to Johnny, I think he's a player he doesn't actually, it doesn't affect his performance when he's out for a couple of weeks. I think he thrives because he's so competitive. No more than myself, I'm sure he doesn't let his own kids win little games. But he just needs to stay hungry. I mean, what harm to... He is pivotal.
This could be his thing about it. This is Johnny Sexton. This could be his last Six Nations. Johnny Sexton wants to spend his last Six Nations on the bench. He's like, no, I want to win a Grand Slam because he's Johnny Sexton. That's what makes him the player he is. He wants to win. He wants to be the best.
I think if Johnny wants to play, Johnny plays as well. Andy Farrell, I'm playing today. All right, okay, Johnny, yeah, cool. Do you know what I mean? Because he is that kind of player.
Yeah. He is, and I get it. And as I said, I'm not going to sugarcoat that. I would be the exact same thing. I'd be in a huff in a corner. You're not playing me. And then you have the sentiment of what service he's given to Ireland and how exceptional. And you wouldn't begrudge him his last Six Nations. But I think if you said, would you like a Webb Ellis trophy? Or would you like another Six Nations medal? What's Johnny Sexton going to say to you? He'll end his career as a world champion. Come on.
You saw an interesting one. I don't know if you saw the documentary that was on over the Christmas, the Tackling the All Blacks one.
It's meant to be very good.
It was good. It's good. It's a good 40-minute documentary. You'll catch it on the player. But he was asked before he went over by his wife. He was like, would you be happy with a win against New Zealand, just one win? If I offered you a test win now, would you take it? He's like, oh, 100%. And then they won the second game. Then she's like, so you're happy? He's like, no. He's like, no, I want a series. You know what I mean? Yeah. And he's like, I'm sorry, I can't. She's like, you're going to be angry now if you don't win a series. He's like, obviously, yeah. But you said you'd be happy if you got a win. Yeah, but that's different. Now we have to win in the second test and we can win the series. I'm not happy to get a series.
I think Laura is his wife's name. She should know better. You live with that man a long time.
You know, and that's Johnny. That's what makes him the player he is.
Exactly. Absolutely. That's why he's had the career he had, and that's why we need him to win this World Cup. I know I'm saying that very early on, but I do think we can do it.
Yeah.
But anyway, we'll talk about the Six Nations and not get ahead of ourselves too much for the World Cup. Johnny's going to play, and hopefully the other lads, Crowley and Carberry, will play as well. But talking about the squad, not just about the 10, there's lots of other positions on the pitch as well. Is there anyone, do you think, call them an obvious squad that's played in the Autumn Nations and stuff. Is there anyone that you think will make their way into that squad, Lindsay? One for me that's kind of just sticking out while you're thinking there is Gavin Coombs. I think might slip in. Even though this back row is really kind of stacked, I just think he's playing so well. He's scoring tries every week for Munster.
Good point, sir.
Maybe someone like Calvin Nash might get in again. I know he's in the last squad. I think someone like that, and they might actually play them this time. I think that's obviously very Munster-esque there now as well.
I think he might bring in a few as well, like what I did before. Is he might bring a kind of a separate squad of like 7 or 8 kind of younger players and stuff. I maybe look at someone like Wycherley, maybe even bring in someone like a Dogbo on them. Give them a bit of training, because you know they normally like to bring in, like Pian Prendergast came in last year and stuff, and you're Hatton Craig Casey 2 years ago, where you're not quite in the squad, but you get to train with the big boys.
I'd like to see Dogbo in, to be honest.
Yeah,
he's very like James Ryan. Like, he's such a big guy, big strong man. I don't know about Gavin Coombs in the back row, because actually Jack Conan had an absolutely exceptional game. One of the few kind of standout. I thought he's starting to really come back to his best. Ryan Bard as well has been playing 6 for Leinster, and he was playing the second row partnership against Connacht, if memory serves me right, him and James Ryan. Yeah. But watching him in the scrum, he still needs a good bit of work on that. Like, your second row they're so pivotal to your scrum. He was a bit high for me. So, like, kind of, I'm like, you're looking at so many players in the back row. I don't know who's getting in there.
Name your starting back row then.
Oh God, I think, to be honest, well, Van Fleur's like 7 sewn up.
Obviously. Yeah.
I think I'd have to go with Doris at 8, and I'd probably still go with Peter O'Mahony at 6.
You love Peter O'Mahony.
You know what? I'd probably go the same as you. I'd like to get Conan back in there, but like, he was good the other day. But Conan hasn't had the best seasons. No, and like, just like Peter O'Mahony, he's Peter O'Mahony. Like, you know, his line-out prowess, like what he brings around the pitch as a leader. What he brings. I mean, he as you said, he's playing some of his best rugby again. He's absolutely fantastic this season.
Like,
he does everything. He's brilliant over the ball. Do you know what I mean? Like, and then you've got like Tyg Byrne then in the second row then alongside James Ryan. I think the big thing is, like, I know Dan Sheehan is playing well, like, but like, it's still a toss up between him and Keller in that hooker position who starts. I think because people forget, just because Dan Sheehan has done so well, like, Keller wasn't available the last time around. And he wasn't fit, so he might just go, actually, Keller's back in there. Andy Farrell might do that.
And you see, your scrum is key for your hooker. I know we talked about the Throne, and his, you know, he's nearly like a back row. He's so mobile in open play, in the loose, which is what you want to see from your hooker as well. So nice mismatches out there in the wing. But I still was trying to figure out what was happening for Leinster's scrum. Sometimes it can be certain angles, like, so if you know the opposition are kind of off the mark slightly, that puts their, say, tie head in an angle. So I was trying to think, now, are we up to that level where we're kind of in a headspace where you can kind of counteract if more experienced hookers and front rows are playing against you? So Kelleher might have the nip on just the scrummaging, and everything else is ticked evenly. Do you know
what I think is someone that people kind of thought might not make it back into the squad, but I think in recent weeks, because of the way he's played, is Keith Earls. Hasn't played much rugby this season, but he's played the last couple of games. He's played well. I think if he plays in the Champions Cup and has a couple of good games, I think he'll make the squad.
I'm not sure.
What is he on? Is he on 98 caps or something? Is he?
Something like ridiculously close to 100,
To be honest with you, like, we said the same thing. I was just looking back again on that documentary, like, and I remember, you know, Keith Earls played that first Maori game, and then we're like, oh, Keith Earls now he's playing that, and then he started in the first test. You know, there's something about Keith Earls. I've said it time and time again: do not write off Keith Earls.
I suppose it's me.
Never write him off. I think he could be in that squad, and I'd love to see him in there, and I'd love to see him.
I think he'll be in the squad, because I've heard that he's really good at coaching the young fellas and keeping it all together and being very cohesive in training and teaching guys things. Will he start in that back 3 though? Could you name your starting back 3 for the Six
probably
Nations?
Probably not, unless there's an injury there. Like, you're probably going to look at, as we said it time and time again, it's probably going to be Lowe, Hansen and Keenan as your back 3. And I think your centres then, I think Aki loses out again. I think it's going to be because you can't drop Gary. No. And I think Robbie works better because of the Leinster link up with Gary. So, and then you've got, like, I personally wouldn't be playing Sexton at 10. Do you know, I'd probably play Sexton 10 against France and England at home, and I'd play away to Italy, Scotland and Wales. I'd play a Crowley or a Carberry, 100%. That's what I do. Let Johnny doesn't have to get on a plane and injure himself or anything like that. He can just chill out. He doesn't have to go for the slog. Relax, go out your front door and play France and play England, and there you go.
Definitely, I agree with you completely. Johnny for the big games, and Gibson Park at 9.
I'd vary it up then again as the same again. Like I'd give Murray, Casey, and Gibson Park all a game time. Maybe give them all a start each. Like I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I think you're right actually, because Gibson Park probably hasn't had the season he has had previously, even though he's been good. But I think Craig Casey comes on. He's had an exceptional. He speeds up the game. It's what we need. So I think you're right. I think
Murray's
the same
starting
thing.
to come into form again as well. Murray's playing some good rugby at the moment.
I think bring them in tactically and give them all a chance to kind of shine and put their hand up. But I think they're 3 exceptional 9s, and we're in a good position to have 3 world-class 9s at our disposal.
So you don't think any shock selections for the squad then? You all think...
I'm trying to think about it. I just don't think so, because we're so fresh off that New Zealand tour.
I'm the only one sticking my neck out here then, is it?
Who are you putting in, Calvin Nash?
I said Coombs and Nash in the squad.
Coombs maybe, and Nash, yeah. I said I'm trying to think. Okay,
I think
from
Coombs
one perspective, no. From another perspective, no. I don't think. See, a lot of those guys that were unexpected have already been brought in. See, normally with the old kind of Schmidt era and stuff, like these guys were only brought in every now and then. If you look since Farrell has come in, the amount of guys that he's brought in over the last few years that normally he wouldn't have got brought in, they've all been brought in and given a chance early. Nearly everyone's been capped at some stage.
Yeah, but you can't cap them all. I'm asking you, who's going to be the...
I'm just thinking, is there anyone there that hasn't been capped, that hasn't been brought in? I don't think so. Like, there's guys that have been rotated in and out. I can't think straight away, is there someone there that hasn't been capped yet?
Has Calvin Nash been capped?
Not for the 15 senior squad.
Yeah,
but he's been in the squad. He's been called up.
Yeah,
I'd like to see him in camp.
Yeah.
And I think, if you're going to pick anyone, I think he's really been on a rise since his emerging tour, and he's gotten a lot of confidence, and he's played very well for Munster. But again, he's coming into a position where you kind of, you could name a load of wingers. Like Jimmy O'Brien can come in on the wing. We've Lowe, we've Hansen, we've Keith Earls, who again, you can't write him off because he's exceptional. Conway's still to come back.
I'm not even asking like someone that hasn't been capped. I'm like someone that I didn't think he'd be in the squad. Like someone
I went out there with Keith Earls. A lot of people talk Keith Earls.
Or like a Joe McCarthy or something might come in again.
I'd like to see Joe come in. I think he's earned his cap, but again, I can't see him getting picked over James Ryan and Tyke Byrne unless there's like an injury to them, and he could be. Again, I think he's someone who can offer something in the World Cup. He's a big mobile guy, and to come up against now, like teams now, like the likes of South Africa, Australia, New Zealand, they're just mobile, big vending machines on legs.
This is their last chance to blood these guys and give them a bit of crack before the World Cup.
I'll put my head out and I'd say Joe McCarthy will get in there. I just think Coombs, I think it's a great shout. I think he's back playing, it's great stuff, but Jesus Christ, one area you don't want to be competing for is the back row.
I think we will know straight away. Game 1 is Wales away from home, isn't it? We will know straight away how he's going to approach the Six Nations based on one decision on that game against Wales. If Johnny Sexton starts against Wales, no, because Johnny isn't going to be fully fit. He's just coming back, so he'll be just about fit. You're playing Wales away from home. If Johnny starts that game, then we're not going to see a kind of, he's not going to blood players in. It's just going to be balls to the wall, best 15. Five games. That's what's going to happen. And if Johnny doesn't play that game and he mixes things up a little bit, and you're like, okay, maybe he's going to switch things around. That's my opinion. I think that's the way you look at it.
I agree. I think you're right. I think you're dead right. All right, that's time for our Never Stop Competing moment of the week together with Bank of Ireland. And this week, I'm going to give the honours to Lindsay to hand it out.
Thank you, sir. And it's my privilege to give it to a Munster player. Roisin Ormond is loose head and got a line out from Munster this weekend against Ulster, and it was a big deal because she's just come back from long COVID and was out probably for around 6 months. So just to acknowledge her getting herself back on the pitch after being really laden down with it. So
thanks very much. Yeah, that's a great one, Lindsay. Appreciate it. Great story and good to have her back. That's our Never Stop Competing moment of the week together with Bank of Ireland. And that's it for this week, guys. A big thank you to Lindsay and Jason for your expertise as always.
Thank you, sir.
No big problem. Thank you to Pat and the backroom staff here for your unbelievable work, and a massive thank you to Bank of Ireland, our sponsors and proud supporters of 4 Irish provinces. We'll catch you next week, guys.
Joe presents House of Rugby, together with Bank of Ireland, proud supporter of the 4 Irish provinces.